Welcome to Your Visionary Podcast. This podcast is specifically for you and your vision. Get ready to grow. Let's go.
Life is in the detour, so every detour we experience, that's an opportunity to learn something.
You sell yourself. Doesn't matter if you're selling ice in Alaska or if you're selling sugarcane in Haiti. They're going to buy from you.
Man, all of this knowledge is in captivity when it should be out in the world. He couldn't believe that I had 25 years, but the way I carried myself, you'd have thought I had 25 days left.
We try to be something so great, and we forget that we're just being humans. We're human beings, and it's like we're enough right here.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Your Visionary Podcast. Today we have a really important episode for you guys. We have Bronkar Lee, international best-selling author, music specialist, international speaker, and just an overall great human being. Bronkar, how are you, man?
Thank you. I'm good. How are you, Christian?
Doing good, man. I'm so glad to have you here, and I thank you, for your time.
Absolutely.
I can't wait to give everyone, a great message, great energy.
Yeah.
And so how we start this off, we always ask, what is your purpose statement and how did you discover it?
Nice. So my purpose statement is a mouthful, right? Because I'm a speaker, so that's what I do. My purpose is to support myself and others to feel alive, to be connected, to be fully present in the moment, to experience happiness, laughter, and excitement, and to be truly amazed and inspired at what's humanly possible.
Wow, so are you intentional about all these things at one time?
All at the same time. I got ADHD, man. It's all there.
Yeah. So what happened in your life to really just sculpt that purpose for you? Because like you say, it's a mouthful. So I feel like a lot of experiences, really happened.
Yeah, definitely. I would say, the collection of experiences for sure, led to that single, phrase. But largely it was one of the greatest mentors I ever had, my friend and mentor, Brian Poirier, and he and Cece, his partner, they had me create a mission statement. Mm-hmm. And the way we created the mission statement was, this is when we lived in Oakland, California. Mm-hmm. I'd go for a walk, and every 3 steps I would stop and recite my mission statement.
Wow.
So it doesn't sound like that much, but when you got a mission statement that's that long, then every 3 steps, my purpose is, and you run through it, and then you take 3 more steps, and then you run through it. So that, what it did was it encoded it deeply into my mind, into my body, into my heart, right? So I was really not just memorizing it, but internalizing it. And so that was going with the motion, with the movement, walking, being outside, and reciting it over and over again to really internalize that so that it was a part of me. Right. And it was just like at the drop of a dime, drop of a hat, whatever, drop of a feather, whatever you want to drop, I could drop that instantaneously.
Yeah. So was that always your purpose statement? Because we have a lot of student listeners, and I think they worry about that their purpose statement now won't be their purpose statement 20 years from now. So was that the case for you, or how did that work?
No, it changes, and I always say life is in the detour. So every detour we experience, that's an opportunity to learn something. Yeah. And so often we seek a linear path, right? As humans, we're like, okay, the linear path, we wake up, we do this, we do that, we have our routines, we brush our teeth, we take a shower, we drive to school, we have class 1, 2, 3, break for lunch, 4, 5, 6, break for day, we do homework, we do our wind down, we do our whatever. We have this linear progression and this kind of systematic lifestyle. Yeah. But the reality is that that's kind of the difference between technical skills and then life skills. And technical skills, you can sit in the room and play your saxophone and map that out and get up your beats per minute or notes per minute. Right. But getting out in the real world, the jazz happens, the real life jazz happens, and so that's when life unfolds. Yeah. And that's in the detour, right? So it's all of those unexpected moments. Those are our lessons, right? Those are the and we choose whether we're going to be paralyzed by perfection or ignited by possibility. And if we live in the state of being ignited by possibility, then every moment that we experience is an opportunity to learn something new. Yeah. Whether it's on script or off script.
Right. Wow, that's beautiful, man. That's beautiful. And I saw you did you compared it to playing the saxophone. I know you said you played 42 instruments. Is that right? 42 instruments. So talk about that. How did you get into playing just so many instruments, and what has that done for you, in your life journey?
Yeah, good question. Well, I got into music playing drums. That was my first main instrument, and then everything kind of sparked from drumming. So everything, the tempo and the rhythm, the cadence, that's at the foundation of every instrument that I play. Yeah. And so I just fell in love with rhythm and percussion. And then I got into vocal percussion. I saw Bobby McFerrin perform, and I was blown away by not only his expertise, but also of his mastery of his self and his instrument, which is his voice, but also the way he connects with an audience by using that skill, right, or that tool, which is vocal percussion and singing and whatnot. So he created this amazing connection. I was inspired by him to get into to beatboxing and vocal percussion. And so I started researching that, and that opened up a ton of world, or an entire world, a cosmos to me, because then it was the self is the instrument. And so once the self is the instrument, everything we plug into, every instrument we plug into is essentially a personal essence amplifier. In other words, we plug ourselves into that, and we have internalized that rhythm, right? Which we all are musical beings. We're not all musicians, but we're all musical beings because we have biorhythms. Our hearts are beating in rhythm. We breathe in rhythm. We walk in rhythm. Our conversation is in rhythm. And everybody resonates with that, right? Yeah. So once we internalize that we are an instrument, right? Our bodies, and then we have that in us, and everything we plug into just becomes the extension of the self. So everything that I plug into is just like, okay, how do I get the mechanical body to do what I want it to do, essentially? I.e. piano, move the fingers, play chords, scales, saxophone, and saxophone, just to nerd out a little bit, saxophone then becomes this combination of different things coming together to make a single note. So you have your embouchure, your lips, your tongue, then you have your breath, your connection with breath to that, then you have that connection to your fingers, and you're not able to see your fingers while you're playing, so you're tapping into your spidey senses, Yeah. So then you're putting all these things together, but the key. So what I'm saying is, different instruments have different learning curves on them. For me in particular, and for everybody in their own way, but every skill or every instrument that I've learned has been a leverage point. So it sounds crazy, 42 instruments, but it's not really. It's just the same thing as getting into math and starting off with your multiplication tables, and then building that, and you progress into algebra, you progress into calculus, whatever. Yeah. It's the same thing. You're leveraging a skill set. You're leveraging what you've already learned, and then you're just morphing into the next iteration of that. Yeah. And it's a different instrument, but you're still taking that foundation and plugging it in and building on that.
Yeah, wow, that's powerful. It's powerful. So on that topic of rhythm, can you name a time where in your life you just kind of, how can I put it, went off rhythm? You did something that was odd to you, or did something that was just you uncertain about, but
Yeah, I'd say uncertainty is a big part of my life for sure. Yeah. There were a lot of moments. I think probably one of the biggest, detours that I had that was like off script or off rhythm, so to speak, was I ran away and joined the circus.
Wow.
Yeah, in 2004, my wife, now girlfriend at the time, we packed up our minivan and drove from Athens, Georgia to San Francisco, California. Wow. And we moved out there, and I studied circus. And we were both musicians at the time, so we were still playing music, but I just had this random thought to, hey, I'm gonna go to clown school, I'm gonna go to circus school. And so we went out there, and I studied circus for a year, and a lot of Chinese acrobatics, and some aerial, and circus skills, stilt walking and juggling and all this stuff. And it was so cool. It was just like this, it was like high level academic education for ADHD masters, It was just like, man, it was like, talk about a kid in a candy store. It was just like, all right, here's rolling globe and juggling and stilts and acrobatics. It's like, whoa, dude. So I did that, and then I took a contract. I got hired to be a ringmaster in a circus in Switzerland. And so I moved to Switzerland for a year and toured Switzerland in 51 cities, 300 shows as a ringmaster in a Swiss circus. So that was one of my biggest detours that was like off script. But inside of that, there were so many lessons, amazing life lessons, and I think a lot of your listeners are young adults and college students, and in that 20s.
Yeah.
And I would say, for me, I was in my 20s then,
Okay.
and that was, I would say, don't fear that uncertainty. Don't fear that not knowing what you're going to do and having it down to the T, because who knows what kind of opportunity is going to surface. Who knows, and when you can say yes to that opportunity, right? When you can say yes to that new experience, that detour might be a game changer for your life.
Yeah. Yeah. So how did you tell your parents about this? Because I know they were kind of like, for one, you dropped me all the way to San Francisco. For two, you want to go to circus school. How'd you just tell them that?
Oh yeah, it was a fun conversation. Yeah. Well, my parents was one thing. It was my girlfriend's parents that was another. You know what I mean? They're like, wait, you're following him to where? To do what? Yeah. So that was a much different conversation. But Cindy's parents are amazing. They're good friends and amazing grandparents and everything. Now we have 2 boys together. But that was, it was actually, and funny thing is, my mom, who is my best friend, my mom was the one that found the circus school for me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So she was like, because I was at kind of a crossroads moment, not really knowing what to do with my life. Mm-hmm. And it just fell in our lap. It was just, it was kind of like, oh, here's this thing, Yeah. And so she actually found the school for me. And then I applied, I went through the application process and everything and got accepted. But it was her idea. So, yeah.
So why were you attracted to the circus school? Like, what about that experience, what was attracting to you?
Yeah, I think just the sense of exploration, of a journey, a new opportunity. Just a chance to get out there and and sing your theme song, and just express yourself and experience something greater than the town I was born in. The town I was raised in, to get out there and have real life experience.
Right.
And of course that was a scary moment. I mean, it's a scary feeling to say, okay, I'm going to leave everything that I know, everyone that I know, with the exception, obviously, my partner, Cindy.
Yeah.
But to pack up a few belongings and to ride out. Yeah. And it's a scary feeling. And this is, now mind you, this was 2004, so this is pre smartphones and having like Google Maps or Apple Maps or whatever your jam is. Yeah. So we actually got AAA to print out road maps of each state for us, and so we had road maps and we mapped out where we were going to go the whole way. We camped the whole way out there. So awesome. Yeah,
that's awesome.
But that sense of adventure, we didn't know, and that uncertainty. I think human beings, we thrive on that uncertainty to a degree. It's the magic ratio, right? We want that. We want that certainty. We want that structure. We want that linearness, right? That, I call it the classical music, right? It's the formula. We practice it. We deliver it. It's perfect. But then we also want that jazz. Yeah. We want that improvisation. We thrive on those moments. And the key, I think, is to find the ratio, the magic ratio for each individual, because yours is going to be different than mine. Yeah. It's going to be different than everybody listening or watching this interview. And so I think the key is to know yourself and know how much you want, how much you need, in order to thrive for yourself in your life. And so for me, it was largely that journey and that opportunity to expand and get out of my comfort zone and experience something bigger than me.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. One of the quotes that I live by is "Fear breeds purpose." Yeah, and I just feel like a lot of my peers, they're kind of okay with just being in the box. They're fearful about just stepping outside of their, what they're used to, right? And so I want to ask you, what are some lessons that you learned, through really embracing fear, that basically shaped you to be the man you are today?
How deep do you want to go?
Deep as you want to get, right?
Right. So I would say one of the biggest moments for me was stepping in the face of fear and taking it on, like head on. Was when I was 28 years old. I met my biological father for the first time.
Oh wow, that's an experience.
Yeah, and the moment that we had located his number, and I had his number in my hand, and my phone in my other hand, and there was this, this entire story, this inner dialogue that came up. am I going to be good enough? Is this going to be another rejection moment? Can I handle this? Is this going to be too much for me? And because this pattern had ruled me for my entire life, not being good enough, not being enough for this human being who knew I existed and he had created, but essentially, didn't care to have me in his life. So when I found him, I had this moment. It was that crossroads moment. And I picked up the phone and I stepped into it and I called him. And the very first words were, I was just overwhelmed with emotion. And I said, hey, is this John? And he said, yeah, who's this? And I said, well, do you remember a Cheryl Bronkar from back in 1979? And then he's like, how'd you get this number? Who is this?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like push back.
Yeah.
And I said, well, look, Cheryl's my mom and I'm her son. I'm on a journey. I'm looking for my dad. I'm trying to meet my dad, find my biological father. And so he pushed back, and rightfully so. It was kind of it was a big. Imagine any of us, being on the receiving end of that phone call, and so he pushed back on that, and we kept talking and kept asking questions, and he was just no, and my intuition was saying this is definitely him. I could feel it right away, like on a molecular level, like I could feel it intuitively. It's kind of like that trust your gut. And I think at the end of the day, if we can tune in with our gut, if we can tune in with our intuition, sometimes that people say that's woo-woo, but honestly, that's just called self-empowerment. And when we can follow that and have ourselves as the beacon for truth, then we can step into these moments. And so I kept pushing back, and he kept pushing back, and and then we hung up the phone, and I was really confused, and went to sleep that night, woke up the next morning. And then I got a call from him, and he said, "Hey, I'm your guy. I'm sorry, but you caught me off guard. Didn't know what to do." So he said, "Well, what do you want?" And I said, "I want to meet you." And so now, mind you, I'm living in Oakland, California. I was raised in Athens, Georgia, almost 3,000 miles away.
Yeah.
This dude lives like 30 miles up the street from me.
In Oakland?
In California.
Wow.
And so he says, well, do you know where Pete's Coffee is, 4th Street, Berkeley? I said, yeah, it's right up the street. He said, let's meet there Tuesday. I said, okay. So my wife drives me there to meet him. And it's this, I'm just filled with emotions. It's an intense, you can imagine. And so my wife drives me there, and I'm in my head, that internal dialogue's going off again. What if I get rejected? What if I don't look right? What if I don't act right? What if I'm not enough, for this man? And so I step forward, we get out of the car, we walk, and then I'm there. And I'm looking at this human being. I'm looking into his hazel eyes.
Yeah.
He's 5'10", 175. He looks like a future version of me. I am looking into the future, and this is the first time that I've met this human. And so the first few minutes were incredibly awkward. And I will say that the biggest thing that broke the barrier was humor and humility, because we both had our guards up at first. We were both trying to prove something. He was trying to prove that he was that he was a good dad. I was trying to prove that I was a good son. We just had that clash. But then we started releasing our egos, and we started just being human and sharing stories and laughing together. And as soon as we started laughing, that's when it opened up. Mm-hmm. And what really got me was when he leaned in to order a drink, and he leaned in and he said, "I'll have a chamomile tea with honey." And I was like, this dude talks like that. I was like, what is this guy? And then I leaned in, I said, I'll have a chamomile tea with extra honey,
That's awesome.
But like there was this moment of that. I was like, oh my God, this is something right here. This is some DNA. You know what I mean? Like this is something.
That's funny.
And then after we were talking for about 20 minutes, about minute 21, I looked at him and I said, look, I need something from you. I need a hug.
Wow.
And he stood up and we embraced. And when he hugged me and we embraced, that puzzle piece came together.
That is amazing.
And for the first time in my life, I felt like I was at the right place at the right time just by being me. I was enough.
Yeah, that's awesome. It all came from just embracing your fear and just quieting their internal dialogue. You know, is that what you did?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's awesome. And like you said, there's a lot of ego. You know, of course, when you meet someone like that, it's just the ego is going to be up hard at first. So what are some ways that you think people can really, I guess, quiet their ego and just get past that? Because I feel like ego is kind of like the other person on your shoulder, right? You know, it's like a voice in the back of your mind, like, oh, you shouldn't do that, you know, or things like that. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like the ego is dangerous at times.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. And I know you said humor is one way. Well, what are some other ways? You
say, you know, humor is a tool. There's a lot of tools for us. I would say, you know, largely, you know, who are we surrounding ourselves with? You know, who are the people that we're surrounding ourselves with that are like-minded, that essentially are amplifiers? Yeah. So who are we around that we trust, where we can share struggles with, but also successes? Because our culture doesn't teach us how to celebrate successes. Because again, ego-centered, it's like, and not that the ego is all bad or that confidence is all bad. That's really important stuff to have, right? Yeah. Very important in my industry is, you know, for like speaking and performing, you know, I'm always in an away game and I'm always by myself. I've got to summon that, you know, or to step out on stage in front of thousands of people, you know? So it's you know, we need that tenacity and that perseverance and that drive within us, right? Mm-hmm. So having a competitive spirit isn't bad, right? It's just when it's in check, when it's that magic ratio again. You know, why is it a competitive spirit? Why are we elevating everybody through this? Is it a positive thing, or is my goal to tear you down to lift myself up? You know what I mean? So there's a lot of levels to it, but I would say, who are we surrounding ourselves with and having amplifiers around us where we can share those struggles and successes with is critical. And then because that creates the mirror and the reflection. And if I'm really here if you're in my highest, you know, good to support you, then I'm gonna show up for you in a great way, and then you're gonna automatically want to show up for me in a great way because I'm gonna be giving you value, which is why you and I are here, right in this moment. Right. So then the other thing is, I would say that internal dialogue is critical, and I would say positive affirmations, right, that you're familiar with. Yeah. Positive affirmations is something that I've been using for years. I mean, it's so critical. And again, this was revealed to me by mentors and coaches that I've had, and so creating a positive affirmation, whether that's, you know, something simple like I am enough, you know, it's a simple affirmation like that you can say, you know, you drop that in a big situation. And when that's on the forefront of your mind, I mean, think about just the difference that makes versus I'm worthless, or I'm nervous, or I'm not going to get this. When you're telling yourself you're nervous, right? It's okay to be nervous. Man, I get nervous all the time. Yeah. But it's like, if instead of saying that, stating the obvious, and I say, I got this, or I'm enough, or something like that, those words of empowerment, encouragement, that's gonna you know, summon my strongest self. Yeah. Right? And so that's critical. So, and then to create those positive affirmations, you know, I have a whole process of worksheets that we've created. We do workout, you know, workshops and stuff. I got a whole process of like how to create an affirmation for yourself, how to create that positive affirmation. You have that as well as in your book and stuff that's coming out. But I would say inside of that also, it's what are the things we're surrounding ourselves with? So like, what are we seeing? What are we hearing? And what are we saying? So what we're saying is obviously the affirmation. What are we saying to ourselves? Yeah. But what are we seeing? What are we watching? Right? What are we seeing around us? What's in our environment? Right? What kind of shows are we surrounding ourselves with? Like, you know, information, you know, whether that's, you know, anything from, you know, I mean, obviously everybody has a different feeling when they watch, you know, a horror movie versus a Disney movie. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like the feeling, you can just feel the energy's different. Not that either one are bad or good or right or wrong, you know what I mean? But they just have different feelings, and that affects us, right? And not only does the what we're seeing on the camera or what we're seeing, you know, in our environment affects us, but the sounds of that. What are we hearing? So what's the soundtrack in that movie? What's the soundtrack in our minds? Because we retain melodies and rhythms and tempos and sounds. The sound of a Harley Davidson creates and catalyzes a feeling in you that's different from like a whistle, from like a referee, at a ball game, or the sound of the energy of being at a football game, right?
Yeah.
Or the sound of like a violin playing, right? Or the sound of a baby crying. I mean, all of these evoke different emotions and different feelings. They affect us on a physical level, right? A metaphysical, a molecular level. They affect us, right?
Yeah.
So what are we seeing? What are we saying? And what are we hearing? And all of those things affect us in a major way of how we show up and really operate in life.
Yeah. 'Cause I feel like they're all gateways to our mind. Like the eye, the ears, and the mouth, they're all gateways. And so I believe that, life and death in the power of your tongue.
Yeah.
So even when you said, like, I'm worthless, like, I felt my heart sink a little bit. Like, right? That's crazy, man. But I want to talk about mentors, because I know a lot of my peers, they struggle with finding a mentor. They struggle with, they don't know how to do that. So I want to ask you, how can you find a mentor, and just what's the importance of having that?
Number one is you got to ask for it.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is there's a couple of levels for asking for it. It starts with the self. So you have to talk to yourself first, and you have to say, I'm interested in changing, growing, stretching, evolving, becoming better, whatever it is, whatever works for you. But it starts with the self, and then when we convince ourselves that we're seeking that, then we start to talk about it, and we have conversations. And maybe that's conversations with our peers. That's conversations with family members. Maybe it's a parent or a sibling, but we start to have those conversations. So what happens is then we have this spark in our mind. Then we start to release it and breathe it out of our voices, and then it's resonating in other people. So it's spreading. It's the ripple effect, and this is how everything in life works. And then it has that ripple effect. And then if I share with you that I'm looking for a mentor, right? Literally, if I say that on this microphone, not only are you going to hear it, but it's going to come through to the listeners, and they're going to say, "Oh, he's looking for a mic. He's looking for a mentor," And it's like, but that's how. And then people are thinking about it, so it has that ripple effect. So then you start speaking it, other people are hearing it, and then they're becoming your amplifiers. If you're around people that have you in their highest good, then they're going to spread that too. So you start to just talk about it, and see, it has this. It's one of these things that isn't linear. Sure, you could Google mentors.com or something. I don't know if that's a real thing. I'm not advocating mentors.com. Don't know if that exists. It maybe does. I don't know. But if you go and Google mentors or whatever, or you search engine mentors, I shouldn't Google. I'm not biased to Google or anything. But when you can go and find something and seek something out. That's one way to do it, right? That's taking specific action on it. And you can definitely do that. You can say, I'm looking for a mentor. I'm going to go find a mentor directly. And you can totally do that. And that might absolutely work for you 100%. You could also, it's a very direct approach, but you could also just start talking about it. Allow it to happen. Because it's the same thing as when we start to, let's say you really like nice cars, right? And you're like, man, I really want a red sports car. Yeah. You know what I mean? And you start fantasizing about it. Then you start seeing red sports cars everywhere, right? It's like my son, who's almost 3. He loves construction sites. I never used to notice construction sites ever, but now when we're in the car, I'm just looking for cranes. That's all we do is we look for cranes. Yeah. And it's like, oh, look at that big red crane. And he's like, oh my God, I want to see it. And he's dressed up like Bob the Builder for Halloween. And but now I see cranes everywhere. I see excavators everywhere. I didn't even know that word a year ago. You know what I mean? So it's but we start to the world starts to show that to us. It's a big feedback loop. And the world starts to show that to us when we start asking for it, when we start putting it out there. That's the way it works. You know what I mean? So, right now, if I just say the word flying monkey, everybody sees a flying monkey. Everybody sees the freaking Wizard of Oz. There's maybe 2 flying monkeys on the planet, but everybody sees that. So we start saying these words, right? And then we start putting it out there, and then we start to see it. We start to manifest it. That's the manifestation part. It isn't we're just poofing it out of nowhere. It's just Expelliarmus. There's a flying monkey, there's a sports car, there's a mentor. It's no, it's we start to talk about it, we start to put it out there, it's already there. I'm not saying flying monkeys are already there, but there might be, I don't know. I've never seen one. But but there's so much, there's so little that I do know that it's quite possible that there's a flying monkey. But we start to put it out there, it's already there, it just starts to show up for us because we allow ourselves to see it.
Yeah, wow. So manifestation just is taking action, speaking it, and it'll come.
Yeah, and speaking, it's the beginning of it, right? But then we seek it, then we're looking for it, then we're conversing about it. That we're talking about positive affirmations because you're writing about it, you're living it, we're speaking about it. That creates more of it in your life too. You know what I mean? It's like, and we talk about what we seek more of. So everything that I talk about, I'm like looking for it. You have conversation, you're like seeking more positive affirmations, you want to create more positive affirmations, and then it starts to show up, but then it's up to us to take that action, right? So it's still us, like we take responsibility, I take responsibility, right? You take responsibility, we take responsibility, but thinking it and then speaking it and then seeking it is like, that's when we can really get it.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's kind of how I met you. I have been writing about positive affirmations and just attracting more positivity in my life, and then I meet you at NSA, and your energy is just so high, and positive that you kind of just like attracted. And our conversation of like, hey, I had to introduce myself just because I was attracted to that energy, that positive energy. And, now we're here.
Yeah,
so it's crazy. Manifestation is a real thing. But on a lighter note, I found out that you have a viral video. I know you get this a lot, yeah. So people probably have seen you had a video go viral, had over like 150 million views. Yeah. Talk about that.
Oh man, yeah. So this was just one of those bizarre things that we were not anticipating at all. Really? It's like. That's so many people are like, oh, how do you make a viral video? How do you engineer it? What do you do? And it's like,
next question.
It's like, man, and I've done a lot of interview. People have me on their shows, and they're like, how do you do it? What's the recipe? And I'm like, dude, we didn't even like. It was literally like this high chair right here that we got your sign on. This high chair. We were chilling, and my son and I were beatboxing. I was beatboxing to my son. He was 19 months at the time, and I was like beatboxing to him. He just started rocking out. My wife just busts out the iPhone, and starts filming. Yeah. And then the next day or a couple days later, my mom came over and Cindy showed her, and she started laughing. She was like, "Oh, that's cool. You should post that." Yeah. And Cindy was like, "Okay, cool." So she just threw it up on Facebook, and then somebody was like, "Hey, this is really funny. You should make this shareable." And we didn't even know that it wasn't shareable. Like she was like, okay. She made it shareable. Within like an hour or something, we got contacted by ABC, and they were like, "Hey, we're doing this water cooler segment. We'd like to interview you and feature you on our channel." Yeah. And so we said, okay. So then I'm on the phone with ABC, did like a long interview talking about just how we roll here, and then it goes out, and the first day it got like 1.5 million views. Wow. And it was like, whoa. And we've never had anything like that happen. Yeah. And then it just was like wildfire. It just it was like millions of views every day. And we were just like, what is going on? I thought paparazzi was going to be out here like trying to catch. Like it was weird, man. Because like we've done a ton of videos in the past and all the production, all the stuff, and it's like maybe like 1,000 views is like really good. You know what I mean? And this was like 1,000 views like in a second. You know what I mean? It was just like So then that just kept going, and we started getting calls from like Ellen DeGeneres and like all this. It was crazy, man. And it's still going crazy right now. This was like a year ago, something like that, and it's still like going crazy. And now I go to speak at places, and people recognize me, and they're like, "I've seen you," and I'm like, "Yeah, I'm the beatbox dad." And they're like, "Yeah, you're the beatbox dad, man. I know you. Yeah." Beatbox dad. Yeah. So yeah, but so that was kind of crazy.
Yeah, but it wasn't intentional at all. It was just you being yourself, just having the fun that you have every day.
It was being authentic, man. And that's what people are seeking. We try so hard to put on the front and be so polished and so perfect. And I'm guilty of this too. This isn't like me speaking to somebody else. This is me speaking to myself as well. It's like, we try to be something so great, and we forget that we're just being humans. We're human beings, and it's like, we're enough right here. I'm not saying don't strive for excellence. Don't push yourself to grow. Don't push yourself to be stronger, faster, smarter, whatever. That's the opposite. But it's like by just pursuing that and like being in the flow of life and choosing to show up and serve and choosing to show up and learn and be the lifelong learner, then we are like elevating, and then we're just being. And if the camera is there and it happens to capture the authentic moment, that's what we're seeking. We're seeking the authentic moment, right? And hopefully you can see it, and hopefully you can hear it, right? And you hit the record and you catch it, but it's the authentic moment that we're seeking.
Yeah.
You know, that's what everybody wants to connect with, man.
Right.
That's what we all want. That's why YouTube's blown up, because it's just real moments. I mean, for the most part, not all, you know, but that's it.
Yeah, and that's what's crazy. That's what I wanted to portray on this show. You know, that like we're not perfect. I'm not perfect. You know, people I talk to aren't perfect, but it's just like, you know, we're being ourselves, and that's always good enough. You know, no matter who you are. You know, there's no perfect, you know, person out there. All right, nobody's perfect. Perfectionism is not real. So yeah, that's awesome, man. So I think on that note, you know, we can go ahead and end the show. But I want to ask you one last question. If you can give advice to your 21-year-old self, what would it be and why?
21-year-old self.
Yeah.
Wow.
So before the circus.
I'm just join the circus now. Yeah, 21, man. I remember 21. Yeah. That was definitely a detour. The life's in the detour.
Yeah, for sure.
I would say, definitely it comes down to this. It comes down to this self-empowerment thing. You know, this kind of like, you know, trusting your gut, this following your intuition and believing in yourself. And that's the difference of like this this ego-driven self versus this confident and empowered self. There's a difference there, but really trusting in yourselves. Like whoever's, you know, to me, talking to my 21-year-old self, or i.e. anybody that's listening right now or watching, it's about that self-empowerment and believing in yourself and believing that, you know, like when you close your eyes and think about it, when you close your eyes and visualize or meditate or reflect or project, right? You know, and really to trust that and to believe in yourself. And this was a saying that my grandma told me. She said, if you don't believe in yourself, who else will believe in you? And that starts with that vibration that we're creating with the self, right? When we're singing our theme song, when we're congruent, right? And we're radiating that out, other people get that theme song in their head, and then they want to start singing that. And then they jump on board and start singing the chorus, you know? And then we start to attract people, and then we get the rhythm section, then we get the band, then we get the symphony, right? Then we get the tribe, the community, and people are showing up, and we attract like-minded people. But it starts from that self and that believing in the self and the self-worth and the trusting that intuition, trusting that gut.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That's awesome. So for the listeners, how can they find your content? How can they reach out to you? You know, you have some books out. How can they find your books? All of that.
Yeah, so my website is bronkar.com, Bronkar, in song form, Bronkar. He's the beatbox man, and his name is Bronkar.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Right.
Theme song. But my website, bronkar.com. They can get some info on there, and you know, yeah.
That's it.
I'm there.
Already, man. Well, thank you, Bronkar. This was so much fun. I enjoyed it, and look back to having you on later on, man.
Absolutely, my man.
There it is.
Cheers.